We're back for the final episode of our positional previews, and today we're going through the rucks.
Come on!
Hello and welcome back to Off the Mark, an AFL fantasy podcast. I'm Mason.
And I'm Casey, and here we are for the end of our positional previews, the rucks, which is quite an interesting line this year.
Yeah, definitely. We don't have as many players to go through as we have previous episodes, so maybe we can spend a little bit longer. There's probably a few like team kind of situations that we can talk about as well as opposed to specific players that we're picking. But we only have to pick two, which is the good thing. Shit thing is it's pretty hard to find two that we can be confident in at the moment. So we're going to go through it all today. We've actually got some scratch match stuff that might come up today. There's been 4 now, I think, or maybe there's 1 going on Thursday night as we're recording this. So yeah, there's been a few more to watch out for. And then yeah, once we're done these rucks, we'll be on to fully going through those next week with you. But should we crack in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So let's start at the top of the line with Max Gawn, average 113.3. He's priced at 1.18 million. I think I said this in our Melbourne preview. I don't think we can pick Max at all. And I think if there's any year that we can say that he's getting too old, it's this year. And it should also be the year that the ruck rules are directly affecting his playing style. I don't think we can pick him at all.
Yeah, I agree. Look, it's one of those things, like Max Gawn has been an unreal player for us in the past, and you can't argue that he's one of the greatest rucks of all time. But
absolutely,
fantasy-wise, this year, it's just not his year. That's not to say that he might not have a good average. I just think that priced as high as he is for someone that, look, is probably on the down, especially in a line that's on the down in a hole, which we didn't get to mention with the new ruck rules. We can pretty much assume that every ruck's going to take a hit in their own way, scoring-wise in fantasy. And just priced so high up at the top, there's just not really any need, especially with no particularly good fixture. Like, for his first round, he plays the dual combo of Marshall and TDK, which we don't know what it's going to be like, but that's a pretty tough combo to face. And then he plays Sean Darcy, Luke Jackson, which is also probably going to be pretty hard to face. And then Pitto and Witsy, who we know has been the hardest ruck to score against for a long, long time. So not a good start for Maxi, and he will definitely drop in price, I reckon, over these first few weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And if there's any talk about the game style not helping the way that he plays and the way the game's going, I wouldn't be surprised if they give him some help this year. I actually haven't had a look at what young rucks are on their list. I think Tom Campbell's there now, who used to be at St Kilda. I think he's at Melbourne now, and they might have a couple other tall players who could play there. But I just think that particularly for Max, one thing that everyone knows about his game is he works down the line. He provides an option, often on the wings. He floats back to defense. He'll bob up and kick a goal here and there. I don't think he's going to do that this year, and I think we lose his intercept marking and all that kind of stuff because he's having to get to every contest. And I think that strips him of a lot of points. And again, picking him after a year where he pretty much did what his best is, 113, I don't think we're getting any value there. And he doesn't have the bye, which is good. A lot of these rucks do. That's pretty much the only thing going for him, and therefore I don't think we can pick him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the rucks are going to take a hit, no matter which way you look at it. And Maxi getting 1 year older as well, which is not appealing to me at all.
Yeah, agreed. We'll jump off of Max and we'll jump on to Tim English, average 110.8, priced at 1.16 million. I'm personally not willing to start him with the early buy, but I think it's a good alternative to anything else if you're not wanting to start some of the common picks. The early buy is just the thing that sucks. If you don't think Sherry is going to benefit from these new ruck rules, you could go English. Although I do think, and we'll talk about Sherry later, I do think you need him with his run. But English does get around the ground a lot already, and he does it well. So he's arguably best suited for this change. I don't think it's going to affect him too much. And I know we don't look too much into it, but we saw him in the State of Origin, and he looked pretty good. He was floating back in defense. He was getting up on the wings, all while playing with the ruck rules. And yes, obviously each team had 2 rucks, but I think that he's pretty well suited for these rules here.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think English, as far as a tank goes, and like cardio, bro's number one without a doubt. Like he runs. I remember clear days back when Port used to play the Bulldogs, and Tim English would take a saving mark in full back, and then they'd push it down the wing fast, and somehow he's in full forward to take a mark as well. It's like the bloke just doesn't stop running. So I think that will benefit him. What I wonder is that will it take away some of his down the line marks if he has to be there at every ruck contest. He might stay a little bit closer rather than that one kick down the line, which would in turn take away some of his marks. I have him as a maybe. I don't see anything wrong with him. I think he's a great pick, and he'll do. Was he probably the number two? Of course, he's the number two ruck. Last year we're doing as an average. But no, I really just. I can't pick him with the bye and with Sherry's run, and I think you've got a plan with Sherry that you're going to say in a second that I'm thinking of doing exactly the same thing on.
Oh, definitely. I think that with the point of him not being able to get down the ground, I think if anyone can do it, it's him. He's got the capacity to run back to stoppage, and I wonder if the Bulldogs are going to want to exploit other rucks and really have him kind of take them all over the ground. And they have the benefit of having a perfectly good 200 centimeter key forward who is, according to Kane Corns, the best in the game, best player that is. Ridiculous. Anyway, no, I love Sam Darcy, but come on, we all know it's Jagger Smith. So let's anyway. Did you? We'll get to that in our next week episode.
Yes,
but anyway, yeah. I mean, they have the benefit of being able to use Sam Darcy as a second ruck, and they could. I think that English is the type of player that every club would want right now to be able to push opposition ruckmen who maybe don't have the capacity to run. And if they can't run with him, he runs them off their feet and they're out. He's out cold and he gets a bunch of possessions, which is great for us for fantasy. Obviously, he had that big year in 2023 with a 118 average, averaged 110 last year. So I think that it's pretty safe to say he'll go 110. So maybe there's a little bit of meat on the bone to go back up to that 118 or something near that. My plan will be to have him, obviously. So currently, as it sits in my side, I have Tristan Sherry and Luke Jackson, who both of which we'll talk about later. But my plan will be to get off of one of them, probably Sherry, I think. If the Jackson plan works out and he's playing well, my plan would be to get off Sherry after his great run. So Port, West Coast, Essendon, and then you trade out before Carlton, Brisbane, into English going Essendon, Hawthorn, Geelong. So you essentially get both of them playing Essendon in 2 weeks, which is, playing against Blackiston, which is going to be amazing. So, yeah, I think I'm willing to do that, and I need English in my side at some point, basically.
Yeah. Agreed. Definitely targeting him off that bye for sure.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about another guy who does also have a bye, and that's Brody Grundy. So he had his highest average last year since 2019. He did get close in 2021 with a 106, but hasn't gone above mid-90s for the rest of those last 5 years since then. Obviously, he's been thrown around between Collingwood and Melbourne, and now he's at Sydney, where he seems to be playing good footy. He averaged 127 from rounds 9 to 21, which is great, fantastic, but he did end up with a 107 average, which sounds great. He goes, when he's playing well like he did between rounds 9 and 21, 127, bang. So what did he do to bring that average down to 107? He averaged 82.4 in those other 10 games outside of round 9 to 21. So my concern is which Grundy are we getting if we do pick him? I just don't think we are. The early buys, just too much of a throwaway. It is that round 3 one, same as English. So if you're really keen on him, you could jump off of Sherry into Grundy if you wanted someone like that. So any plans that we're saying here, as I'm thinking with English, you could do with Grundy. But I'm just saying, he did look good in the scratch match today, though, apparently. But English wasn't playing because obviously he played State of Origin, so he was just playing against a bunch of VFL rucks, so no wonder. But yeah, I think I'm a no on this one.
Yeah, I'm not completely shutting down the idea. I mean, I'm not picking him. He's very expensive in it, and Sherry's my number one for sure. But I can't ignore the fact that last year when Big O was playing for Brisbane, we used to target the games that he was injured for, and Darcy Fort was their number one ruck. Now, yes, Darcy Fort's a very good ruckman, but he gives up a lot of high scores. And Brody Grundy, over the last 3 times he's played Brisbane, and it's been Fort, not Big O, he's averaged 127. And he plays Big O round 1, and then they go into Hawthorn, who were a little bit easier last year. And then, I don't know. they've got their bye, obviously, is what they say. So then they go West Coast, but after their bye. But Grundy was literally forced everybody's hand last year. Everybody had to have him. If you didn't have him, you were just losing points straight away. And from rounds 9 to 21, as you said, yes, he dropped the last 2 rounds of the year, but that's literally like an 11-game stretch where bloke's just gone unreal, been the best ruckman and scored, averaging 127 or something. What is it?
Yeah,
like,
it's a crazy number. Yeah,
you can't ignore that. I can't hard know that. Like that is next level. And
So from rounds 9 to 21, he scored 115, 111, 134, 124, 139, 121, 137, 113, 126, 129, 130, 150. You notice how many times I said 1 in that sentence there? Didn't go under 111 was his lowest score in that time.
Yeah, it's pretty
But then
impressive.
throughout the rest of the year, so round 0 is 69, a couple of 80s in round 2 and 4, a 54 and a 60 in round 7 and 8, and then obviously the end of the year in 83 and 89 against Brisbane and West Coast. And he did, by the looks of it, play quite a few easier teams in that good run of his. So he played Essendon, Carlton, Melbourne, Crows, Richmond, Port, Bulldogs, Freo, St Kilda, North, GWS, Essendon. North and Melbourne are probably the only 2 that I would consider hard. So there's definitely reasons why I think he went that well, but I don't doubt that he could do something similar again. Maybe not quite 127, but 115, absolutely, I could see him doing. And if so, there's 8 points of meat on the bones. So, yeah, I'm just not keen because of the bye.
Yeah, and that's completely understandable, and all the more reason to move on to the next guy.
Well, let's move on to this guy, and he's hugely relevant. Tristan Sherry averaged 105, priced at 1.1 million. So I think that he's probably the most affected when it comes to the new rules. So his work around the stoppage will not be as effective fantasy-wise and football-wise with the game running faster now. Wouldn't be surprised if he changes that. I've heard a couple of interviews with him, and it doesn't sound like he's... Not that he hasn't put much thought into it, but just that he's kind of gone, we'll see how it goes, which doesn't fill me with a whole lot of confidence. I want to hear that he's gone, yep, I've completely changed the way I play. Like it's completely different. I know I can't force a stoppage and tackle my way out. I don't know. I feel like I want to hear that. And because of that, I don't really see him getting back to the 114 from 2024. But he's definitely still down because he's priced at 105, which is 9 points under that. And the early run is what does it for me. So he plays Port, which it looks like will be Vicentini. We'll talk about that later. West Coast, who we know are easy. Essendon, who will be even easier with Blackiston. Carlton, who I think will be a medium team this year. Brisbane with Darcy Ford, who could be a little bit harder, but could be easy. And then Richmond, who he went 2 150 scores against last year, 155 and 165. So against all those opponents, Port, West Coast, Essendon, Carlton, Brisbane, Richmond, he averaged 125.6 against them last year.
It's pretty good.
I mean, he actually played most of them in kind of like a run. I think Collingwood were in there as well. Let me just have a look. Because he played most of them like consecutively and still scored. Yeah, here we go. So round 6 onwards, he plays Carlton 116, Port 122, Essendon 121, Brisbane 116, Richmond 155, Collingwood who doesn't play, and then West Coast 111. And then later in the year, he played Carlton again for an 84 and played Richmond again for a 165. So, look, he's got the track record against these teams. Any scale or fixture difficulty table or whatever you look at will say that it is a good run for him. I think that as well, because of his ownership, you kind of have to start him. But I think I would be making plans to get off him after that.
Yeah, I think after looking at a couple of these preseason matches, like I watched a bit of the Swans Bulldogs one today. I watched the Carlton Brizzy one. I watched a bit of the first one, Hawks Cats. I honestly don't think that we're going to see a loss in the tackles after the tap. Like, I was having to think about that. Everyone's worrying that X is going to lose 2 to 3 tackles a game. He's still tapping the ball down. Despite the fact that they'll have to run and jump at it, it's not like they run a jump of it and then the rucks aren't allowed to play. I watched Darcy Ford get 3 stoppages in a row because he tapped it down to someone, tapped it to Pitto, and then tackled them straight away. I think that we're looking at that ruck change with a little bit too much hesitancy. I think we can just bank the fact that X is a tackle machine and it's not going to drop as much. It might drop a little bit, but I
Yeah.
don't think we can. If it does drop, I don't think we can pin it on the ruck rules changing as such, because I was having a real good think about that, and they still go together and they still bang up, down,
Yeah.
tackle straight away. So it's not something I'm worried about with X losing that at all. Which is just all the more reason for me to pick him, because
Yeah.
yeah, he's elite at doing that specifically, and just elite at everywhere else around the ground as well. Kicks goals as well. Like, the bloke's elite. So 100%
Yeah.
green
I think
tick in my book.
my concern with the ruck rules is probably more around the guys like Gorn, who have played a bit of a roaming around the ground marker, down, back, up, forward. And Tim English plays the same, but I think he has the tank to get there. I think Max Gorn doesn't, and that's what concerns me. And I think there was a lot of talk, probably earlier before we saw it, about the lasso, how do you say it? Lasso. The lasso rule, where they, if it goes out of bounds between the arcs off a disposal, it's a free kick for the other team instead of a stoppage. I don't think that's going to affect the game much. I think we've maybe seen 1 or maybe 2 per game on average this preseason. So that's 1 or 2 less stoppages. I mean, that is probably where X getting less tackles come from, is there's probably going to be less stoppages, less opportunity for him to do that. But look, I would rather go to these guys like Sherry English, who are younger, who are more willing to bend to how they're going to have to play the game for the next 6 to 8 years if they're playing that long, as opposed to a Grundy or a Gorn, who are, probably in the last 2 or 3 years of their career, and just going, look, I'm going to roll through, and maybe this is the end of me. I'm done after this. So definitely, I think you can start with X. It's a tick for me. And look, you could hold him, but I'm looking to come off of him, I think.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I like it a lot.
Well, let's talk next. And we haven't quite sorted by price today, because Rowan Marshall is slightly priced above Tristan Sherry, but I thought we would talk about him and Tom DeConning in one. So Rowan Marshall averaged 105.8 last year, priced at 1.11 mil, and Tom DeConning averaged 84.7 last year, priced at 889k. I just think we can't look at either of these two unless someone gets injured. They're not going to get dropped unless Rowan Marshall gets forward status. I think then maybe we could pick him. But while both of them are playing in the side, I think it's downhill for both of them. Tom DeConning could still probably provide a little bit of value, because I think they've confirmed that he'll be like the number 1 ruck, or they'll be using him more, in which case it's still probably like 60%, which is lower than most number 1 rucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, at 84, I think particularly the game could suit him the way it runs now. But yeah, I'm just not keen on either of these guys, to be honest, and early buy as well.
Exactly. It's like, I love Roma. He was my ruck from round 3 last year. He's elite. But there's just 2 of them. And when the teams that we know are playing a definitive 1-2, like St Kilda, Hawthorn, a couple other teams, like, I just can't entertain the idea of them at all unless it's the next bloke you're talking about.
Absolutely. And let's look at him. It is Luke Jackson. Average 94.9, priced at 995k. And he's the most interesting kind of conversation for me at this point. So I looked at his ruck contest. He had the same amount of ruck contests in 2024 and 2025. It was 51%. And for reference, Gorn had 82%, Sherry 84%, and English 80% last year. So it's well below the average for a number 1 ruck. But he averaged 78.6 in 2024 with 51% ruck contest, and then 94.9 in 2025 with the same amount of ruck contest. So something changed. Now, I think, imagine what he could do if he does bump up to that 80% ruck contest, should Darcy spend heaps of time out, or they just go with Jackson. Now, my problem is there's word he could play as a midfielder. And he even did in the State of Origin, which I know we're not meant to read into that, but I mean, the fact that he's playing there, not even in his own team. I do wonder where he fits in with Brayshaw, Sarong, and Young. I don't know how that mix is going to work. Is he going to cover them when they're on the bench? And does this mean, and this is my question to you, does this mean Darcy does play, or when he's out, Cox plays? And there is, like, do you think there's a possibility that Jackson could be the only ruckman, like pure ruck of those 3 in the side for a majority of the year?
Yeah, and that's, if anyone who knows me knows I'm hot on absolutely hating Mason Cox, but you can't deny the fact that the bloke's like 7 foot and actually can tap the ball.
Yeah.
Like,
He's serviceable.
Exactly. It's you don't have to be talented at anything or smart. It takes it to be able to tap the ball down to play. So, I reckon Cox plays. If Darcy's out, maybe there's one game, or they put Cox on a bench, and if it doesn't work, they just sit him there, kind of thing. But I don't think Luke Jackson's gonna get solo ruck time without them at least trying Cox. I think then that's a useless pickup they made, a useless decision not to use a bloke who's that tall and has done well in the past. I'll give it to him. He's done well in the past. So whether it's like Luke Jackson come around like 7 or 8 is solo ruck, then mate, that'd be next level. But until then, I don't think he's solo ruck. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to score highly at all.
Absolutely. Well, I've got these numbers here. I did a fair bit of research. So, games where he had under 50% ruck contests, but over 50% CBAs, which is where we can assume he was a ruckman and a midfielder, playing CBAs, but not all of them are ruck contests. He averaged 95.7. So that is, what is his average? 94. So pretty much his average, a little bit above. Games when he had more than 50% ruck contest and more than 50% CBA, so probably when he's playing as a ruck mostly, he averaged 103.2, which is almost 10 points upside. And then there were 3 games where he had under 50% ruck contest and under 50% CBAs, which I would assume means he was resting forward or just kind of not playing much. He averaged 77.3. So we obviously do not want that. If there's any chance of him resting forward, which I don't think there is, it's a no. So his best position is that full-time number 1 ruck, and then maybe resting 20 or 30% midfield, possibly a little bit forward or like on a wing or something, or kind of anywhere, as long as he's playing majority ruck time. So I think that's what we want. And I agree with you. I think Cox would have been a useless addition if they weren't thinking about this. I think their thinking is we want to play Darcy and Jackson in the same side. They have 5 on the bench now. They've always wanted this, and this is just the year that it works perfectly for them to do what they've been trying to do with their acquisitions, even of Luke Jackson. And so I wonder if it's, Darcy's injured, we still want to play the 2 rucks because we like Jackson in the midfield. We're going to play Cox instead. And if both of them get injured, well, fucked if I know, you know? Like I think they're wanting to play 2 rucks. I think that's their plan here from what they've recruited.
The only other thing that I can possibly think that maybe puts a dampener on Luke Jackson is the fact that he's one of the league's best forwards as well. He has won games for free off his boot. Whether Mason Cox impresses and Sean Darcy still on the side, they decide to play the 2 of them, and Luke Jackson gets a mid-forward split rather than a mid-ruck split, then that would be something to watch, because as you've heard with Mason and Sheasel, we're not a big fan of the mid-forward split. So you want to kind of keep an eye on that. If Mason Cox impresses, which, God, I hope he doesn't for both fantasy and just because I hate the bloke, would be really disappointing for Luke Jackson's fantasy scoring, or interesting to see how he can maintain it, whether he averages a certain amount of goals a game, because they've still got Tracy and Paddy Voss and all that, so it's hard to see them like just doing that from the outset, but you never know. I don't think they start with it, but I reckon they have the potential to maybe swing it, especially if Freo are losing.
Well, I'm just going to quickly Google Sean Darcy because I feel like I've heard some injury news possibly about him.
Probably knowing Sean Darcy,
But the other thing I was going to say is that I think that if Cox does come in, should Darcy be injured, like I said, they'll want to use the 2 rucks. I think Jackson plays majority ruck. I think it's pretty obvious he's a better ruck than Cox, and they can rest him in the midfield, 100%. Which is what they want. They want him playing midfield. But again, like I said, he's not going to be above Brayshaw, Sarong, Young. And they've probably got some others in there too that I'm forgetting that they'll want a blood in there or play in there. So yeah, I don't think this should be too much of a concern for us. I'm pretty happy with this pick. He's sitting at my R2 at the moment. There is a guy though that we can talk about later who he could swap out with before the season begins, but yeah, that's where he's sitting for me.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
Well, let's talk Port Adelaide now, and I've again named 2 ruckmen here in Jordan Sweet and Dante Vicentini. And I thought I'd hand this one off to you, obviously, as the Port supporter, but just one bit of vital information. The squads came out today for tomorrow night's scratch match, and Jordan Sweet not named. Now, I did see someone mention that it could possibly be they're wanting to get a full game in the ruck out of both of them, because Jordan Sweet is playing in the Sandful practice match, which is valid, but then still Vicentini is over him playing in the full team. So I just wanted to get your take on what you think happens with the team based on what we've heard.
Yeah, I just don't see it at all whatsoever. I went to the internal trial where Port played Port, and obviously Sweetie versus Vicentini. You don't take much out of the internal trials because they're 2 half teams played up against each other. But if there's one place we can look for the 1-to-1 matchup, it's the 2 rucks who are battling for that number 1 spot. And I stayed for the first half and listened to the third quarter. from my eyes, Sweetie went 30 from 35 in the middle, tapping and taps hit outs to advantage. Like, he was all over Vicentini. Don't get me wrong, Vicentini was out running around the field and all that sort of stuff because he's a fitter, faster bloke. But Jordan Sweet, when it comes to the ruck rules, I don't think it's as different as we think it is. Like, the main difference for the ruck rule is that you can't pass halfway in the centre bounce. That doesn't mean you can't still bang into the bloke and bang him out of the way. You just can't pass your side. So Sweet was taking the advantage of that bigger body that he has and getting most of the hit outs. So at least from a Port Adelaide supporter perspective, I would prefer Sweet in my side. Like, but I just can't see a world where Port doesn't run the two ruck system with these two blokes. Like, this is as tight a R1 battle we've seen for a long time, and now we have a fifth spot on the bench. What better excuse to not play these two guys together? Which is why I've got them both as a no, because I just don't think we can fantasy-wise pick them both if they're both playing in the same team, because it's the same DeConning Marshall thing. It's the same Reeves, other old mate Mickey there. It's the same for those two. Like, I just, don't get me wrong, I was really hot on Jordan Sweet. Like, ever since that podcast, I'm still holding that R2D2, which has just been sitting here and I've just been playing with it. But I can't see it, and I think I was just holding it just because I was a Port fan. But I don't think Vicentini's going to take Sweet's number one spot, and if he does, Sweet's not out of the side. Vicentini's not pure solo ruck. They're both in the side together. So for me, as a Port Adelaide fan, as a bloke who's like been to a lot of their trainings and the internal trials and that sort of stuff, from the eye test at least, Sweetie's still the number one. Whether this Sandful game, internal scratch match game has anything to play whatsoever, then maybe it does, but I don't see it personally as a fan.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of talk. I've heard a lot of people saying that this and the Crows situation, which we'll again talk about later, is like a bit of like sending a bit of a message to Sweet and to O'Brien. And I don't know if I buy it. I mean, I get that strategy, but I don't know if they'd be taking that all the way to scratch matches. I think this is where you start to really kind of lock in on, okay, who is our real kind of main team? I mean, the only one that I've watched in full is the Carlton Brisbane, and you could tell that Carlton for the first half at least were going, okay, this is our like 23 as it stands, or 25-ish, you know? These are our best players that we have fit. So I don't buy into the fact that it's still trying to send a message to, you know, senior ruckman. But I think that what you mentioned about Vicentini being faster around the ground, I could see them going with him because of that, because it, you know, suits the game plan. I actually think a lot of these clubs that are going to go with these types of players are going to find out pretty quickly that it probably doesn't make that much of a difference. And that's why I think that, picking guys like Vicentini or McAndrew as like R2 is like very, very bold and could absolutely destroy your year in a matter of weeks. Obviously, McAndrew at R3 will work because he is rookie price, but Vicentini at 539 is just at that awkward price where you kind of have to commit at R2 or miss him. And I haven't tried it, but I've heard that if you put him at R2, and I can imagine it would completely change your team. Like, you'd have cash everywhere. I'd have 450k more, but I can't do it. It's too risky.
Exactly.
Way too risky.
If one of them gets injured, then bang. I'm jumping on the other one straight away. Even if it's Vicentini gets an injury, I'm probably jumping on Sweet just because of his upside. But I'm not before then. The thing with the scratch matches, it'll be interesting to see the proper Amy series community one. When they travel to West Coast to Perth to play them.
Definitely.
It'll be interesting to see if they bring both, or if then they just bring Vicentini and they leave Sweetie back. Then they'll look at it. Then we might start looking at it a little bit more seriously. But just for something like this, I don't know. It's literally labelled the unofficial scratch match, and I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Teams do make a good point to play their full teams, but
yeah,
that'll be the real test for me. And then obviously, Port play before the Giants, I think. So if you're tossing up between two blokes who are similar, like if you wanted to pivot to a Briggsy, who we're going to talk about next, I am tripping. No, they don't. No. Anyway, never mind. But yeah. Oh, we'll have squads. Yeah. That's the one. We'll have squads. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
We'll have teams listed and all that is what I meant. But if he's not in the side, then you can pivot off of him quite easily.
Definitely. Well, let's go to Kieran Briggs now then. At the Giants, average 70.4, price at 738. The kind of only real two things that suck here is the early buy. which we can kind of bypass because it's the good one, round 4, just the Giants and Saints.
Bypass.
But that was, I didn't even mean to do that. That's crazy.
Well played.
And also the fact that he is, a big lumbering, not very fast ruckman. But what works in his favor is GWS literally don't have anyone to replace him. They didn't recruit any rucks. Their second ruck, I think, retired, and they didn't really get anyone else in. From memory, whoever played as their second ruck when the other one was injured is still there, but I don't think that he's a replacement for if Briggs gets injured, essentially.
Yeah.
So he's coming off of 94 in 2023 and 91 in 2024, and then obviously 70 last year. So he's more than 20 points unders. Obviously had an injured 12 in round 0. He played 20 games. He was underdone in some, absolutely. Just kind of had a bit of a off year, I guess. All his stats were down: 3 to 4 less kicks, about 1 or 2 less tackles, 6 to 8% less TOG, 6 to 7% less ruck contests, 9% less CBAs than his, big 90s in 23 and 24. So there's plenty of room to grow is what I like. But again, my main one is it's either him or Jackson in my side behind Sherry. And if it is him, it's absolutely Briggs upgrading to English because he has the round 4 bye. So then I could, have Briggs. What would his run be? So Briggs would play Hawthorn opening round and then Bulldogs, St Kilda, Collingwood, straight into English, Essendon, Hawthorn, Geelong. So it's good, but I do prefer going Jackson, holding him for the year if his role is good, and then having Sherry go Port, West Coast, Essendon into Essendon, Hawthorn, Geelong. For that reason, I have paid up the 200k or whatever it is to Jackson. But let me tell you, when I need some cash, going down to Briggs is not the worst option in my team. It's still a very real possibility. So I think you can definitely do it.
Yeah, I'm all in on Kieran Briggs. I think he's going to be 20 points upside minimum from his 70 average. Minimum.
Wow.
I reckon he goes 95. I really do. How often do we see rucks go over 100? And yes, new ruck rules, everyone's going to drop. Bro. Anyway, I think he goes 95. He's the number 1 ruck. As he said, no one's taking his spot. The only thing that hinders that is if he's injured. And that goes the same for anybody, and you can't pin it on me. If he has a completely uninjured season and averages under 95, I'll take it. But I just don't... Tell me honestly, in a world there, he's a massive R1 who's big, bulky, and can kick goals, who we've seen as well. Is there a world you see him average under 95? Yes, that'd be a career best. But,
I don't think so.
Just, injuries aside, I just don't see it. So, you know how I had my Jordan Sweet little R2D2 here? I've actually upgraded. I've gone the Kieran Briggs 2D2.
Oh, God.
I've got R2D2 a little bit bigger, and I've stuck the Kieran Briggs footy card on top, mate. Here's my R2. I can't go past it. That is going to be the staple. Get a photo of that and stick it on your Instagram reels. That's going to be the go-to. He is my R2. Simple as that.
That is, you've had that sitting there for the last 30 minutes, just waiting to pull that out. I had no idea. Usually you're you can't not give it away to me before we start recording, but I love that you've just had that under your desk.
It's been sitting there waiting for you. Yeah. But I'm all in.
There you go. One question I do want to ask that I think is an interesting conversation that I've literally just thought of. We've heard since, or at least I had last talked about him in our club previews, the Giants midfield is decimated. How much do you think this affects him? Do you think that the Giants are winning less ball? He has more room to tackle. I don't know if that's really part of his game. Do you think that it kind of deflates him because they're going to be probably losing clearance a lot? Do you think that, it's going to be, he's going to ruck completely differently because he's essentially that top 3 mix of, from memory, Green, Callahan, O'Halloran is probably going to be Oliver, O'Halloran, Toby Green, Cornelio maybe, some kind of mix of that. Do you think he rucks differently, and do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
On the contrary, I think that this actually gives Toby Bedford an opportunity to have some more midfield time, and we all know what Toby Bedford can do when he plays in the midfield. He's a lockdown person who gets tackled straight away, which... You know what tackles means? More bowl-ups, more stoppages, more opportunity for Briggsy to get another tap. Yes, there's the Toby Green talk, and mate, that'd be awesome. We'd all pick Toby Green on our side, but it's Bedford for me. And I don't think he's got any injury-wise or anything like that. Is he? Oh, he does. I see your face.
He does, yeah. Not bad. It's like Callahan, where I think he's probably only going to miss the first couple of weeks. I'm just checking here on the Giants injury update. Oh no, he's out for 4 to 6 weeks from this week.
How did I miss that?
Yeah,
Was that recently?
probably.
Or was
Yeah,
am I
it
just
was
tripping?
like this. It was the same. It was buried in with Taylor doing his hamstring, Callahan with the hip, Green with the ACL. Like it was just all happening. So
They're up.
yeah, but yeah, 4 to 6. So Callahan's 2 to 3 weeks, but should then play possibly an opening round, but has been injured. So then Bedford, you would think probably plays possibly before their bye in round 4, but maybe not. But it would definitely be back after the bye, I think, and possibly earlier. So yeah.
Well, then in that case, then yeah, it could do. Maybe Briggsy only averages 92 instead of 95. But no, you know what I mean. Yes, it's definitely something to think about. Yeah.
I think it could impact him positively. I think that he could have more of a role in there, play a bit more, at least at stoppage and particularly centre bounces. I think he could play a little bit more as like a midfielder, even though I know that's not how he plays. So last year he averaged 3.1 tackles. In his years of 91.5 and 94.1 and 24 and 23, he averaged 4.8 and 4.5. So he's down about 1.5 tackles. If he can get that back to his game, which he has there's no better opportunity to do that than now. Look, he could go 100.
He could indeed. I wouldn't mind that at all.
That's not on my record of like preseason. You can't like bring that back to me and go, "Oh, you said Briggs." You can't.
Yeah.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm ticking him off if you like it. He's not on my side at the moment, but he very well could be. But I think you could pick him.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to kind of our last name, and it's Lachlan McAndrew, our only rookie priced ruck, who's an option outside of the ruck forwards who we've spoken about in the forward line, and also your red dots that you're wanting there. And so he's 286k. Never played a game before. So word is that Riley O'Brien, and this was a tweet from earlier today. I actually should get the Port vs Crows scratch match teams up, but the word was that he was going to be left out of that team as well, and that it was just going to be McAndrew playing. Here we go. What number is Rob?
R1. Wait, where's it going? Sorry.
Oh no, so he is playing, number 43, but McAndrew is playing as well. Oh wait. This is a very confusing way that they've laid this out. Let me find another one.
43 is his number.
Yeah. So it looks like he is playing, but there's word that he's not high in the pecking order for whether he doesn't play the first half or something and he only plays the second half, or the word through the preseason has been that McAndrew absolutely could take over his role. Even Matthew Nix came out, I think, and said, I don't have a quote, but something about McAndrew's impressed this season. O'Brien's, not so much without bagging his own player. But McAndrew's faster. Yeah. He's, more agile, more, as we've talked about all episode, adjustable to this new game style. And again, like we said with Port Adelaide, a team's going to try and pick a different ruckman to be more adjustable to the way the game's going to be played. And are they going to find out in 2 or 3 weeks that it is really not that much different? Who knows? Could they find out before the season starts? Who knows? But look, if I got confirmation he was playing round 1, and especially if someone came out and said, yeah, he's in there, we're just going to give him a few rounds, he's straight into my R3. I don't need a red dot. But if he wasn't selected round 1, I'm going a red dot. Oh, but then you could go him as a red dot and see if he plays later in the year. I know it's 286, not 230k, but it's 50k. I mean, if you've got it to spare.
Yeah, there's certainly some upside in picking Harry Boyd. Harry Boyd. What's Harry Boyd? What's Lachlan McAndrew? Sorry. There's certainly some upside, but it's just giving images straight back to last year.
Was that a joke?
Yeah, that was Well, we all had Harry Boyd in our team from round 1. We has him as our R3. Oh mate, he's ruck 1. Yep. Round 2, look what happened. Straight out of the side, didn't play a game for the rest of the season. But I don't even think it gets to there. I haven't spent too much time with the Crows. I actively try to avoid that for my mental health. But it's been quite good for my mental health recently with all their injuries. Anyway, I must admit, it's kind of the same thing. I don't really think that this ruck rules is going to change too much. I spoke on it with Vicentini and Sweetie. It's just yes, Sweet and Rob might not be taking the reins at these scratch matches, but come round 1, once the teams have a little look at these Amy Community Series games and all that sort of stuff, and they realise that maybe the bigger body ruck isn't the worst thing of all time, we'll have to see what happens. But there's literally an entire positional question up in the air: is how are these rules going to affect rucks, both for footy and fantasy-wise? Like, it's going to be a big impact one way or the other. And it's like, do we go with these younger, faster, fitter guys, or do we just back the big boys who have done it year in, year out? Like, that is the question for the rucks. You could literally title any podcast to do with rucks this year, how will it affect it, like, all that sort of stuff. Like, and that's the only kind of storyline that we've been spinning with the rucks, because we actually just straight up don't know. And it's going to be interesting. If I were to hazard a guess, I just think they just back the big boys.
Yeah, and I wonder if the fact that we've heard so much about it, like, I agree that it's been way over talked about and that it's not going to matter as much when it comes to games, but I wonder if we're sitting here thinking, oh, we've heard so much about it and it's kind of getting tired. Like, you know, when a player sits in your side and you get tired of and you go, you know what, I don't even know why you're here, and you get him out. I feel like that could be us with the rucks. We've been talking about it all preseason. I don't know what it's about. I'm just going to ignore it now because it's been over talked so much, and then it does actually affect us. So I agree. I think we just have to wait and see. I think Amy Community Series is the best way to wait and see, because that's, you know, we're going to have proper games there played. I mean, they're obviously being played with the right rules now, but proper games with every club's ruck. And on that point, I think we should move to, instead of going through rookies because there are none, I think we're going to go through all 18 teams, and we're just going to give who we reckon is their ruck lineup come round 0, round 1, or who's it kind of in contention for their rucks throughout the year, because there's a lot of kind of, you know, 5 on the bench. Some teams are going to run double rucks. There's some in contention, as we've talked about this episode. So we'll start with the Crows, and that's obviously McAndrew and O'Brien. Brisbane, you would assume that's Darcy Fort, but Sam Draper could stick his head in once he's fit.
Yeah, I think it's...
There you go.
I was going to say, I think it's Fort until Draper comes back, and then they'll probably try him as an R1 just to see if it works, and then they might switch back.
Yeah, okay.
What I was thinking.
I could say that. Carlton, so that's Pitnet, and I think Reedy's going to play in the side.
He looked alright.
But it was about a 70-30 split, but he looked really good from a Carlton fan's perspective, so I could see him making the side. And but yeah, it's Pitto R1. Collingwood's just Darcy Cameron, obviously. Essendon is Blackiston. We are pretty confident on until Nick Bryan comes back. And obviously we didn't go through Blackiston because he is listed as a defender. Go back and listen to our defender episode if you did want to catch our information about him. Not much has changed since then. Freo, we've spoken about them. It's probably Jackson, Darcy, Cox, some concoction of them, but probably Darcy R1, Jackson R2/midfielder. Unless Darcy gets injured, in which case we're probably going to assume it's Jackson R1, midfielder, and Cox as like the backup ruck.
Or if one of those forwards gets injured, it's
yes, true.
That's something to watch as well.
Absolutely. Geelong, I think they've been using Sam De Koning still.
Okay, yeah.
I think he played, and I didn't watch this game, so I might be wrong, but I'm pretty certain he played a lot of ruck time, at least in the clips that I've seen he did. And I think Blitzarves didn't play possibly, so that might be why, but we're not worried about them anyways. Gold Coast, it is Witsy, although I wonder if this is finally the year they give Witsy someone to help him out. And I wonder if it's
Is it Ned Moyle still?
Ned Moyle, and I think he's like 400k or something, 500k, and he can score really well. I remember him having good junior numbers, so he could possibly come in and impact and help Witsy out, and maybe be someone that we could possibly look at, but it's a bit of an awkward price again. The Giants is Briggs, absolutely no one else. Yep. Hawks, it is Meek, but there is word that Reeves is slowly overtaking him, just like we've talked about the Port and Crows. Could be a bit of BS, bit of a rocket to Meek, but I don't know. It's one to watch for sure. Melbourne, it is Gawn. Though, again, I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in someone to like kind of second ruck for him, because he hasn't really had that much, apart from it being a key forward. North Melbourne, it's Sherry. Taylor Goad, who I think was probably firming up to be their second, actually went down with an injury on the weekend. Same game that Colby did his in, I think. So he won't be playing. So yeah, it's Sherry there. Port Adelaide, we've spoken about them. Richmond, it's Nank. Again, wouldn't be surprised if they give someone to help him out. St Kilda, it's Marshall and De Koning. The Swans, it's just Grundy. West Coast, Bailey Williams is their ruck, right?
Yeah, Matt Flynn's probably the number one as it stands, right, but I reckon they run both of them.
Yeah, so similar to what they did last year?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, there you go. And then obviously English for the Doggies. So that is interesting for matchups as well for who we're going to look to, launch into as our rucks. Who are they going to be playing? A lot of them are quite different to last year, so that's something to definitely take into account. That a lot of, when we're saying, oh, this guy's got a great run, it might not be so great. And if someone's got a really bad run, it might be actually pretty good. So I think we kind of, like everything we've said with the rucks this episode, and to wrap up, we just need to wait and see, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I would just quickly mention, we kind of talked about him in our forwards podcast. As you were talking about West Coast there, wouldn't be surprised if Cooper Duff-Tyler becomes their second ruck full-time and they run him as a ruck forward, because he's one hell of an athlete and plays as a great forward, but can play in the ruck as well. Chopped out with Flinney in that internal trial, because they were on the same team, and Bailey Williams on the other one. Actually looked alright as a ruckman. He's really tall. I think he's 201 centimetres, so wouldn't be surprised. And then that would be a play in our forward bench or even our forward field for sure.
Yeah, so he's 338k as a ruck forward, averaged 99 games, and he did not average 99 games. Averaged 99 fantasy points in 5 games of under 18 footy. Models his game off Tom DeConning, has been compared to a young Luke Jackson. So definitely I've heard a lot of people impressed with him. So definitely one to keep an eye out of. But unless there's any more rucks that you want to talk about that we missed, I think I've said everything.
Finally, our shortest podcast for the year.
Yeah, I know. How's that? And it's still, we've only gone like 20 minutes unders with about half the players we usually talk about. So we've managed to still stretch it out probably longer than we need to. But again, we are giving you all the best information here on Off the Mark.
Exactly right. With any luck, picking your rucks and picking your R2s has been on the mark.
And not off the mark. And we'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll be looking through some of the scratch matches as they end on Sunday. I think the last one is with the WA teams going against each other, and looking forward to the Amy Community Series. Finally, some good camera work. I can see Jagger in action. Jagger in action as his, Brownlow winning self, because he's the best player in the comp. But
we'll see you then.
See you next week.